Dear colleagues, allow me to open the United Nations Expert Group meeting on the draft handbook on register-based population and housing censuses. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Srdjan Markic. I'm the Chief of Demographic Statistics at the UN Statistics Division and also Technical Director of the 2020 World Programme on Population and Housing Censuses. Greetings from New York, greetings from the UN Statistics Division. It is indeed a pleasure and a privilege to have this many colleagues around the virtual table to discuss the draft handbook on register-based population and housing censuses. We are extremely appreciative of the fact that we have such considerable representation of from all the regions of the world and from a number of statistical offices. We are looking forward to indeed a very productive next 3 days to discuss the draft handbook that will be part of the methodological framework for the 2020 round of population censuses and also beyond that as well. By way of proceeding, I would appreciate very much if you would agree with having UNSD chairing this meeting. Usually we would have our colleagues sharing on different days, but however, having the virtual meeting and the online meeting prevents us of successfully doing so. And in order to proceed at the acceptable pace, I hope that you will trust us to do the job properly. Do I have any dissension or objection to this proposal? Thank you very much. Thank you. We appreciate your approval, and then we will proceed. Accordingly. So. The purpose is to review the draft that is in front of you. The way that we intend of doing it is by going through different parts of the handbook in a very detailed manner. We did invite colleagues to act as lead discussants for certain chapters, for the chapters of the handbook itself, and we really appreciate very much their acceptance of doing so. So the program of work essentially would consist of the opening remarks by the United Nations Statistics Division, and then we will go through the introduction of participants. After that, we will just tackle some logistical matters, including instructions for asking for the floor, and then we will then proceed with the actually substantial part of the work. I am fully aware of the fact that introducing the participants will take one by one, will take some time. However, I really believe this is of utmost importance so that we actually get to see, at least using the technology, the cameras and the microphones, the colleagues around the table. So what I would appreciate very much is when I do call a country, if you can switch your camera and please introduce yourself, that would be much appreciated. So I will start with then, of course, alphabetical order. We will start with Austria. So would you please turn on your camera and introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning to New York. I'm Regina Fuchs from Statistics Austria, and I'm the Census Manager. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Regina, and welcome to this expert group meeting. We really appreciate your participation. Canada, please.
Hello, my name is Sylvain Delille, and I'm the Assistant Director responsible for the Census Program Transformation Project.
Good morning, my name is José Moral, and I'm also an Assistant Director in Methodology, and under my responsibilities, I have Census Research.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Michelle Simard. I'm the Director of a Methodology Division responsible for the Census methodology and also the Census research and infrastructure, including the register. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Canada. Chile, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Aileen Flores, and I am the project manager of the Population Register project.
Good morning. My name is Jorge Urrutia. I'm a head of a statistical construction department from Chile. Thank you.
Thank you. We have others from Chile.
Hey, Sergeant. No, I don't think there is no one else today.
No one else today. Very well. Thank you very much, Chile. Estonia, please.
Hi, good evening from Estonia. I am representing Statistics Estonia, and I am team lead at the Population Statistics team.
Thank you very much and welcome. Indonesia, please.
Good morning and good night. My name is Ari Purwati. I'm a statistician from BPS Statistic Indonesia.
Thank you very much. Iran.
Hello everybody, my name is Hessam Khodamaradi. I'm from Statistical Center of Iran. I'm expert on population. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Iran. Mr. Hassam. Israel, please.
Hello, I'm Ifat. Hello, I'm Ifat of Israel, the head of admin census.
And I'm a census planning and developing sector.
Thank you, Israel. Kenya, please.
Good morning, good evening. My name is Scholastica Kingi. I work with Population and Census Division with the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics as a demographer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Congo. Lithuania.
Hello, my name is Milda. I'm responsible for population and housing census in Lithuania.
Thank you, Lithuania. Malaysia. Malaysia, you are muted. Ms. Safia, you were muted. We didn't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry, just now.
Yes.
Okay, by the way,
Yes.
I'm Suhaili. Yes, I'm Suhaili from Department of Statistics, Malaysia. And with me, I have 4 other colleagues. And hi to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Netherlands.
Okay, hi, good morning. I'm Siti Nohuda binti Nordin from Department of Statistics Malaysia.
Thank you. Thank you, Malaysia. Netherlands. New Zealand, please.
Hi, I'm Hannestina. I'm in the research and development team of Stats New Zealand, and we're working on census transformation.
Thank you very much, New Zealand, and thank you for participating. We fully understand the time difference, and we appreciate you being here around the table. Thank you. Norway, please.
Thank you. I'm Helge Brunborg, demographer and senior researcher in Statistics Norway. Thank you.
Thank you. Oman.
Good evening or good morning for you. This is Yusuf Ariami, DG of National Statistics and CSI.
Here also I am Malik Rawah from Oman. I am Malik Rawah from Oman. I am from Census teams.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Oman. Peru.
Good morning. I am Engineer Moises Elia from the National Institute of Statistics of Peru. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Peru. Poland.
Janusz Dygaszewicz. I'm from Statistics Poland, and Director of ICT Systems, Geostatistics and Census Department, and also Director of Central Census Bureau in Poland.
Thank you, Poland.
My name,
welcome.
My
Yes,
name
please,
is
go ahead.
Anna Długosz. My name is Anna Długosz. I'm a Deputy Director of ICT Systems, Geostatistics and Census Department.
Thank you. We also do have on our list Mr. Pavel Murawski, Mr. Woźnica, and Mr. Woźnica. So thank you, Poland.
Hello, my name is Krzysztof Woźnica. I'm working for Data Engineering Unit in Poland Statistics. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Paweł Murawski. I'm an expert in data processing and editing in Statistics Poland. I prepare data for the census. It's the same department in the director. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Poland. Singapore.
Hi everyone, I'm Chessing from the Census Office from Department of Statistics Singapore. I oversee the planning and implementation of the census. Thank you.
Thank you very much and welcome. Spain.
Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Antonio Argueso. I am the Director of the Demographic Statistics and also the manager of the census in Spain.
Thank you very much and welcome, of course. Tunisia, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shabah. I'm from the National Institute of Statistics of Tunisia, Deputy Director of the Business Register, and I had also the opportunity to participate on the Census 2020 made by Oman.
Thank you very much. Thank you and welcome. Turkey.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Good morning and good afternoon, dear participants. I'm Mehmet Doğu Karakaya from Turkish Statistical Institute, Demographic Statistics Department and Population Characteristics Group. I'm Turkstat expert. Some of my colleagues have connection problems. Alper Acar is also expert in the same unit. Alper Acar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Turkey. Let's move to Uruguay, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lucia Perez. I'm the head of Quality Management Unit of the National Statistics Office. Thanks.
Good morning, good evening. I'm Federico Segui, Deputy Director General at the NSI of Uruguay. I'm also in charge of the pilot project of a register-based census.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Diego Abual. I'm the director of the National Institute of Statistics of Uruguay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Abual, and welcome to this meeting. We really appreciate such a distinguished number of experts from so many countries. Now let us move to the organizations. We will start with Eurostat, please.
Hello, my name is David Thorogood. I'm responsible for the team which produces census, demography and migration statistics for the European Union.
Thank you. Thank you, David. UNECA, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gloria Matenge. I'm a statistician with the Economic Commission for Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, ECA. Let us move to the Economic Commission, United Nations Economic Commission for Europe.
Good morning. My name is Fiona Willis-Nunez. I'm from the UNECE. I support our work on population and housing censuses in the region of the Conference of European Statisticians. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you very much, Fiona, and welcome. ESQA, Economic Commission for West Asia, and Economic and Social Commission for West Asia, please.
Hello, my name is Ismail Rubad from UN ESQA Statistics Division.
Welcome, Ismail. ESCAP, Economic Commission and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific.
Hi, hello, my name is Petra Nachmias and I'm Chief of the Population and Social Statistics section at ESCAP in the Statistics Division.
Hello, I am Afsana Yazani and I'm a statistician at UNESCAP Statistics Division.
Thank you both, and welcome for ESCAP. We are moving to Latin America and the Caribbean, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean.
Hello, everyone. I'm José Henrique. I'm a demographer and consultant at the CELADE. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Alejandra Silva from ECLAC, CELADE, and I work in the demographic area.
Thank you very much, and welcome, ECLAC. Let us move to our sister division, DESA Population Division. Please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Patrick Gerland from the Population Division, and I lead the team responsible for the World Population Prospects.
Thank you.
And I have my colleague Ivan Williams in principle also with us.
Welcome to both. UNFPA, please.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Tapiwa Jamba. I'm a technical advisor responsible for census at UNFPA headquarters. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Eduard Jongstra, a regional advisor on population and development for Eastern Europe and Central Asia.
Thank you both. Let us now introduce the team from UNSD. We will start with our consultant that actually contributed significantly to drafting of this handbook. So, Ian, would you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, good day, everyone. My name is Ian White. As Sergeant says, I've been invited to prepare the initial draft for this. My background, for those who don't know me, and for those that do know me, hi, it's good to see you all again. I've worked for 40 years on the UK census before I retired, and I've helped prepare the UNECE recommendations and both the UNSD principles and recommendations on the global censuses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ian. Go ahead, Mariam.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Mariam Demirci. I work at UNSD as Interregional Advisor on Population Housing Census. I'm working with the Census team and particularly for 2020 Population Housing Census Program.
Seife?
Hello, everyone. My name is Seife.
We can't hear you, Seife. There is an issue with your microphone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Seife. I'm a statistician with the Demographic Statistics section and a member of the Census team. Thank you.
Thank you. And you?
Good morning, everyone. Andrew Smith, statistician, UNSD.
Thank you very much. That would conclude the list as we have it at this point of time. However, we understand that there will be some corrections to this list, and there will be participants that will be joining us as of this morning and that are not reflected in this list. Therefore, what we intend to do is towards the end of this first day, we will circulate the list of participants, and we would appreciate very much that you then take a good look at the list, correct any mistakes that might be there, and then we will circulate the list to all the participants, and we will also post it on our website, of course, without the emails. We will just post the information about the participants, but we will not, of course, put your emails up there so that we prevent any kind of unsolicited emails reaching you. Another point regarding some of the logistics of this meeting, you may have noted that the recording and the transcription have been initiated of this meeting. We intend to record this meeting and to put the recorded version towards the end of the day, of the business day here in New York. Should you have any concerns regarding us posting the recordings for everyone to actually to be able to access it, please let us know. Send us an email, and then we will act accordingly. We really believe that the fact that we have the online meetings extends significantly the target audience, which is not always the case when we meet face to face. And we would like to take the advantage of the opportunity to involve as many colleagues with the work that we are doing here as possible. So again, if you have any concerns about being recorded and concerns about that recording being posted online, please do let us know as soon as possible so that we can act again accordingly. We will consider it. Another of the logistics of the meeting, I believe that by now we are all quite familiar with how this works. So we will have the possibility, of course, of commenting either orally or or using the chat box, whichever you prefer. Should you wish really to take the floor, then please just raise your hand, and we will, of course, give you the floor in order as requested. What we also would like here to introduce is the way that we intend to work during these 3 days. So there will be an initial presentation by UNSD regarding the overall overview of the methodological framework for population and housing censuses, and where this piece fits exactly in. And by way of essentially providing you a bigger picture for this 2020 round of population and housing censuses, as well as some considerations for beyond that 2020 round and towards the 2030 round. Then we will turn our attention to the overview of the draft handbook. And we do have 5 chapters here in the handbook, and the 6th, which is the very short one, but 5 substantive chapters here. We did ask colleagues to prepare introductory presentations. First will be of the overall draft handbook, and then we will focus on chapter by chapter review of the text that is in front of you. We have solicited, and we appreciate very much the comments, written comments that we have received up to yesterday. I understand there is another set of comments that arrived just before the meeting, and we will then introduce those comments tomorrow. We need just to go through the proposed suggestions. So the way that we are going to conduct the meeting, we will cut the chapters in small pieces, and then we will first review the written comments that have been submitted by the participants, and then we will open the floor for the discussion and additional comments and suggestions. I believe that you would agree with that. Any objections or proposals to move in a different way? No, well, thank you very much then. I would then conclude that we have agreed on the provisional work program. We are quite flexible. We have 3 days, and depends on the pace that we are going through the draft handbook. We will adjust accordingly, of course, the sessions. So this is not really cast in stone. We want to consider every single comment as long as it takes, and then to make sure that we are all contributing in a substantial manner to the outcome of this meeting. So with this, allow me then to just move to the very short presentation, introductory presentation by us. And let me just try to share my screen. Very well. I hope that you can see the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, very well. Let me then start with a very small background. So the 2020 World Program on Population Housing Censuses essentially has been enacted by the Economic and Social Council in 2015, and it essentially gives the mandate of putting together the monitoring of the implementation of the 2020 World Program on the United Nations Statistics Division, as well as preparing different components of the methodological framework, providing advice to countries on the best and the most acknowledged techniques and methodologies to conduct the population housing censuses at least once in the period 2015-2024, including producing small area census statistics out of administrative registers and other sources as being practiced by a number of countries so far. So this framework essentially is anchored by the principles and recommendations for population housing censuses, and then it is accompanied by a series of handbooks. The handbook on the management of population housing censuses, the handbook on census editing, the handbook on the use of contemporary technologies for conducting population housing censuses, and also the parts that are looking at the post-enumeration surveys, that are looking at the use of GIS for the population housing censuses, and the use of censuses for producing SDG indicators. So this framework is now being complemented with this draft handbook that is in front of you. Allow me then to also point to the fact that this handbook draws very heavily and builds upon the work that has been done by our colleagues from the ECE and the Conference of European Statisticians. There is a handbook on the use of registers for population censuses that was issued in 2018, and then there is the very recent volume that has been introduced again by ECE and the Conference of European Statisticians on the quality assessment of administrative sources for population housing censuses. So building on all of this, the background for the draft that you have in front of you is relying on the fact that administrative registers are more and more generated by governments and service provider, and they're becoming an increasingly important source of data for official statistics, especially for producing census information for small areas. Now, of course, using administrative sources offers many opportunities in generating small area statistics, in particular for reducing the costs and improving the quality of data, and and essentially eliminating the burden of response to the population and to the households. Of course, a very important advantage of relying on this model is that the small area statistics data can be produced in much more frequent manner, in some cases on a yearly basis. And also what we have noticed and noted during the pandemic starting from March 2020 is that the hit of the pandemic has been especially felt by the countries that were relying on traditional censuses. When we say traditional censuses, we are referring to the fact that each household in the country is approached with a request to provide information for the population housing census, irrespective how that approach has been operatively solved, whether it is a personal interview or whether it is contacted by internet self-enumeration. Then COVID came, and the canvassing of the country became an enormous obstacle and enormous problem that caused the delaying number of censuses. And if you look at the data that we have very recently published out of 104 countries that plan to have a census, according to our data in 2020 and 2021, 2/3 actually postponed their censuses, most of them indefinitely and multiple times. So that prompted a number of queries about the use of alternative sources for the censuses, and that is one of the reasons that we undertook this the process of drafting this handbook in order to provide advice and guidance and the good practices to the countries that are considering implementing this model in the years ahead of us. So this is the background for the document itself. The objective of the draft handbook, the overall, of course, is to provide advice and guidance to national statistical offices, especially again those that are undertaking this journey in terms of exploring the way that the administrative data are or can play the role as a source for generating census statistics. The handbook aims to elaborate on the key considerations and requirements for transitioning from a traditional census to other census methodologies involving the use of registers. So the point is here that we do have, as I've already mentioned, 2 volumes that are quite elaborate in terms of addressing the issues pertinent to the region of the Conference of European Statisticians. We wanted to build on this and then add the components that would address the issues that have been raised with us worldwide and in all the regions of the world. 6 chapters, as I said. The introduction is the first one, moving to a register-based approach. Number 2, number 3, types of administrative source, transforming administrative data into census data, quality assessment, and then the very short conclusions and recommendations. I will go very shortly through the content of each chapter, just for I'm quite convinced that all of you are now quite familiar with the text in front of us. However, just for the sake of introducing the work here, mention the content of each chapter. The introduction is all about the rationale why we are considering moving to register-based censuses, and then some of the essential definitions which are critical, as for all the statisticians, the definitions and classifications are our bread and butter, of course. The second chapter is focusing on moving to a register-based approach, and we are emphasizing the preconditions and census-specific preconditions that need to be met in order for this model to be effective and to be applicable for the national statistical system point of view. The third is about the type of administrative sources. We are here elaborating different administrative sources that can be used for the purpose. And of course, we are elaborating at the same time about the differences that exist between those that operate the different registers and the statistical use of the same registers and the data that are contained in those registers for producing and compiling aggregate statistics at different levels. And this is what we are now seeing in chapter 4, which is on transforming administrative data into census data. We do have a number of national examples that were used for putting together these chapters. A number of countries are already using this approach, and we can learn from them. However, as we all know, one size does not fit all. There needs to be adjustments. There needs to be very specific national considerations taken into consideration, and of course some of the very specific technical issues, such as how do you deal with applications, how do you update and the science of life approach, and how do you actually make sure that the registers reflect the reality, and editing and imputation are also part of this chapter. Quality assessment, as I mentioned already, there is an existing volume already for the Conference of European Statisticians, and this is just expanding it to the different circumstances that may be occurring in implementing the register-based approach. Chapter 6 is really extremely short. It is on conclusions, recommendations, and of course this is something that we expect to be enhanced after we have this meeting. Finally, we do have the case studies, and this is the work in progress, and this is one of the kind requests that we have addressed to you to provide your national examples so that we can make this case study enriched in terms of the national examples. We really believe that providing national examples is an opportunity to establish direct contact with the colleagues from different countries, and then learn from each other and exchange the experiences, which is always extremely valuable and productive. So this is the very short introduction to the handbook, putting it into the context of the methodological framework for this round of censuses, but also looking beyond this round to the next round. The content of the handbook, of course, in very broad strokes, and then we will, of course, go in detail, chapter by chapter, sections by section, and make sure that this is this has been really reviewed in the most comprehensive manner. So I will stop here, and then I will open the floor for any comment at this point of time, or any suggestion or clarification that is necessary to be provided. So the floor is open. Very well, I do not see any hands up, so that means that we can proceed with our work program. So we are now well into the session number 2. And we have started with the presentation by UN Statistics Division, and then we are now turning to our lead discussants. As I've said at the very beginning, we put the kind request to different participants to be the lead discussants for the sessions. And for this session, an overall overview of the draft handbook, we did ask Malaysia and New Zealand. So Malaysia, would you please take the floor?
Hello, hi everyone, Sergeant. Thank you. So would you like to for me to proceed with the presentation, or we will invite? Please. Yes, okay. So let me share the slide first. Okay, can you see the slide, everyone?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank UNSD for inviting Malaysia to be part of this meeting, and congratulations to UNSD for producing this very much anticipated handbook. Okay, based on the overall review, we would like to share what's on our observation based on this first draft of handbook. So based on the overall review on the general structure and content of this handbook, we can see that this handbook has covered all the important subjects and relevant topics. In fact, the chapter 1, the introduction, has given a snippets and also an overview for the coming chapters. So there is a definition on the register itself and what is definition of population. So it's good. And there is also an example for good country practices also being explained. Nevertheless, we can see that it is very much appreciated if the handbook could also provide more best practices or good practices of countries. Perhaps you could insert the best practices in a box to explain on a good country practice. For the overall handbook, we can see that there are only 2 boxes. So perhaps when we can find the boxes, so it refers to example from other countries, example or experience for other countries. Okay, so for the introduction, as I mentioned just now, that this chapter has covered exhaustively and explaining overall structure of the handbook. And the suggestion is we would like the best practice to be included more and to elaborate more for selected countries that has experience in developing the register-based statistics. Okay, for the chapter 2, this is only a summarize from what we have been reading from the chapter 2, whereby for Malaysia, we also have developed a register base. Actually, currently we are still in the midst. We have yet to finalize because we just finished our operation for population housing census 2020 in October. We just finished the operation. Currently, we are in the midst of processing the data, and with the coming out of the finalized data, so we are proceed towards in developing the register-based data in combining with other administrative data. So this is, we foresee that these are some of the issues that other countries also has overcome. That Malaysia also, we have some issues on the precisely on the Statistic Act. Currently, we also being reviewed on the Statistic Act, have yet to finalize. And regarding the legal provision, definitely we also face some of the agencies that reluctance to share their data with us, and also and issues on the PDPA. So nevertheless, we are trying and we do have some cooperation, a very good cooperation from other agencies, such as we have a very good cooperation from our National Registration Department, whereby we have received frequent data in terms of birth and death, and also a number of people or population in Malaysia. And okay, still on the chapter 2, these are some of the organizational frameworks. As we mentioned before, that Malaysia administrative data, we rely heavily on the National Registration Department for the residents, and also we have data from Immigration Department of Malaysia that is to cover for the non-resident of Malaysia. So the unique ID is being used is for identification card, and also a passport number for the non-resident of Malaysia. And these are some of the moving to a register-based approach, which Malaysia also are using this framework that we are following to develop a standardized coding and editing records, and also to linking unit record between registers. Okay, so this is on population register. So we do have data, frequent data of birth and death, and also international migration, and also for the building on also dwelling register. Okay, for the address register, currently apart from population register, which for Malaysia we known as Malaysia Population Register System, MSPR, statistics, sorry, and also MSAR, Malaysia Statistical Address Register. So we are developing both population register and also address register database. Okay, for chapter 3, we are looking that this chapter has extensively explained on various administrative sources to be considered in developing registers based statistical system. And also, we also can say that apart from base registers, other specialized or supplementary registers also can be used as administrative sources. Other than that, we can see that one of our suggestions is perhaps this handbook can cover unregistered units such as illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants, which is not being explained in this handbook. So we would like to know what are the possible or the best sources for us to get information for illegal immigrants, and also maybe on a stateless. Currently, we're also having some issues on referring which administrative data or sources best to develop for these unregistered units. Okay, and then for quality assessment, it is this chapter has explained on the relevance, accuracy, timeliness, and coherence, and accessibility and interpretability. So these are very well explained. For us, we do follow, and we also would like to know what are the best country practices. Okay, so with that, we are looking forward to have some sharing knowledge and also experience from other countries, because currently we are in the midst of developing the population register. So thank you to UNSP, and thank you, Sergeant. And over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And the presentation.
Surgeon, you are muted, Surgeon.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So thank you, Ms. Safia, and thank you very much for the illustrative presentation that essentially is exactly what we were looking for, how the countries that are on their way to switch to a different approach to generating small area census statistics are seeing the handbook in front of us. We are taking very copious notes about national examples. As I've said, this is a work in progress. They will be there included as much as possible. And we are also taking very much your comments regarding the undocumented immigrants and the stateless person on the board, and then we will certainly make sure to reflect them in the final versions of this handbook. So again, thank you very much. Let us move to New Zealand, please.
Hello, everybody. Again, many thanks to the organizers. Apologies if I appear slightly unconcentrated. As mentioned, it is the middle of the night for me right now. It's coming up to about like 3 a.m. Now, I'm a manager analyst in the Research and Development Hub at Stats New Zealand, and we're working mainly on census transformation And maybe to start with a bit of context, New Zealand has traditionally a 5-yearly full field enumeration census, but like probably everybody else here, there is a strong push towards being an admin first agency. Now, the census transformation program of the research and development team has been going on since 2012. And the idea was to explore the possibility of deriving census-like information from admin data. Now, this actually became very, very useful in 2018 when the census 2018 encountered lower than expected response rates. And in particular, lower than expected response rates in populations of interest, as for example, New Zealand's indigenous people, the Maori, or Pacific peoples. Now then it wasn't planned, but all the research that had been done to this stage was we were able to actually put that into use and fill some of the gaps in that census with admin data and improve the overall coverage of that census. For the next census in 2023, which is the next census year, we are planning to follow a similar model, but this time actually do it by design, properly planned, with enough time ahead and with prior public engagement. Now, the model there is still to take census responses over admin data, so push for as high a response rate as possible, and again, only fill gaps with admin data. There is still a lot of effort going in and trying to aim for high response rates and not rely on admin data for the large amount of responses. Now, for the next subsequent census then in 2028, a decision on the design hasn't been reached yet. It is due about 2024, but we are working hard to provide the options for an admin-based census, trying to evaluate what is actually possible and what we can do. Now, working towards that goal, in September of this year, August, September, we have released an experimental admin population census, and we had to repeat the word experimental over and over again. Now, this is not as wide as the traditional census. New Zealand census has about 60 variables. The experimental version that we've released only covers the population and not dwellings and not households. And some more context, New Zealand doesn't have any centralized population or address register that we could use, but we were able to use the integrated data infrastructure, which is a research environment where researchers can have access to anonymized linked unit record data from a wide range of government databases. So that covers tax, border movements, births and deaths, education data, health data from doctors and hospitals. It's really quite phenomenal. And altogether, all of these databases have actually quite a good coverage of the population and cover a wide range of topics. The question is really how to use this data and how to derive census information in general. So the comments I have on the handbook are mainly grounded in that experience of delivering this experimental admin census and more general of the census transformation work. So overall, I agree with the structure of the handbook, and it's already quite full of valuable information. I'm actually quite looking forward and sharing it with the team. There's a few technical details and typos, which we can probably get into through the upcoming sessions. There's two aspects that I would suggest aren't at least fully covered. Number one is one problem of how to design the actual transition towards an admin-based census. And what I mean here is, like, even once we have the destination in mind, once we have a good design for an admin-based census, we've laid all of the technical groundwork and everything. The question is still, how do we move from the current situation to that future, to the admin future? Now, one of the selling points of admin-based censuses and registers is that they're supposedly cheaper, but of course, one of the options would be to just run both of these systems in parallel. But then, of course, you have this overlapping period where it's actually more expensive and convincing any sort of stakeholders or government politicians to spend more money is obviously a problem. Now, if you minimize this transition period, then that would come with a considerable amount of risk. What happens if you fail to deliver? There's no failback option available, and so on. So the question that I would like to raise, or maybe like to see included, is, are there actually any sort of modular approaches in moving from one system to the other? Are there already rewards that you can harvest halfway through? Things like, say, prepare an admin-based population frame that can be used for surveys, which then already can sort of switch the surveys over, and then at one point you can a sample frame, and then you can move to a fully admin-based census. The second point that I think should be covered in a bit more detail is the one of public acceptance and social license. This is mentioned, but possibly not stressed enough. On our experimental admin census, we had a lot of very positive feedback and a lot of excitement about the possibilities that an admin census has over the traditional census in terms of frequency and detail and some of the things you can do in this admin space that you can't do with a traditional census. But there has also been a noticeable amount of pushback concerning the move away from the traditional full field enumeration, partially because not all of the variables of this, as I mentioned, very wide New Zealand census not being covered and not being included. And there's some fears from researchers and government agencies that the data, that they are losing quite a lot of valuable information there, but also some concerns about social license in general. And we've heard very similar stories from other NSOs. Yeah, and I think those are the two things I would like to raise. Other than that, very much looking forward to the next 3 days. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Keynes. Thank you for this, indeed, I would say, a very well elaborated overview of the way that New Zealand is actually tackling the issue of whether this is suitable for the national purposes. And those 2 points that you are mentioning are indeed important, which is to design the actual transition, and that we certainly can elaborate much more on, since we do have countries that went through this process, and then we can learn from them and synthesize their experiences into some kind of guidance for the countries that are yet to get there. The public acceptance is a very important point. Yes, we need more elaboration on this. We do have one of the points here, and this is just to provide some more information to all the participants, is that we did elaborate on the register-based censuses in both the principles and recommendations, and we do have there some of the issues that are not repeated here in the handbook itself, because we are cross-referencing it to the existing pieces that we have put together before. And we did elaborate on the public acceptance, especially from the point of view of understanding some of the numbers that are going to be produced from the administrative register-based censuses, and especially when we talk about the small area politics and the small area implementation of the various policies that are really of so much interest to the lower level. So yes, the public acceptance, we need to elaborate a bit and then cross-reference with what we have existing. But thank you very much. It is indeed a very welcome comments on the overall structure of the handbook. So at this point of time, I really would like to open the floor for any comments, any suggestions on the overall overview of the draft handbook. And I have here Helge first. Helge, please go ahead. Norway.
Thank you, Sir John, and thank you for organizing this meeting and the extremely interesting chapters. I have read the chapter we are discussing now, chapter 2, with great interest. I have many minor comments that I will send you in writing, but the 2 more general comments are, one on paragraph 215, when you discuss legislation, saying that the NSO should look after its needs to revise its legislation, and the same for the administrative registers. But it's not up to them to decide of the legislation. It is, of course, it's up to the, yeah. Can you not hear me?
No, we can hear you, but we are not at chapter 2. We are now on the general comments of the overall.
Sorry. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. Okay,
so
then
we will.
Yeah, then I'll have a comment on New Zealand. Then, yeah, the one was the.
Sure, please.
The one on the process to how to proceed, and the experience from Norway to register census experience from Norway and many countries is that it should be done gradually. Just don't jump from a traditional census to a fully registered census at once, but do it gradually, introducing more and more variables that have been proven to be of good quality through various registers. So that is the one. And are there any intermediate harvests? Yes, there are, because as a register develops and matures, you can produce statistics on the way to using them in the census. So, for example, in Norway, we started producing population statistics a few years after the population register was established, but it took almost 40 years before we could conduct a fully register-based census. So in the meantime, the register-based statistics system improved greatly. So that's one comment. Your other point on the public approval, I think in the Scandinavian countries, there's a high rate of public approval, and one of the reasons is a general trust in government and in government structures, in the statistical office and the administrative registers. That is one important reason. Well, the trust in government is not always there in many countries. In some countries, people think that we think that the government is there to help us, to help and serve its citizens. In other countries, they think that the government is there to steal from its citizens. So it varies. The other reason is that people have realized in Norway that people have great benefits from an administrative system. Personally, not only through statistics and services, but it makes life much easier for people if you have a good administrative system. When you go to the doctor, if you apply to going to university, you don't have to fill in the income tax return forms because the tax authority does it for you. So people are aware that a good administrative system with good registers makes life so much easier. So then making statistics from the same thing is no big deal. Thank you. The final question to you is, why is New Zealand so afraid of ID numbers and a population register? I fail to understand. Your neighbor country, Australia, and even England have the same fears. So why is that? Does it have to do with language? Thank you.
Just to comment on the last point, I don't really know myself, but I think it is just part of the culture and part of the tradition that there is this aversion.
Thank you. Yes, we do have countries like this all over the world, and this is something that essentially is not peculiar to New Zealand only. There are quite a few others as well. Any other comments on the overall composition of the handbook? Are there some issues there that you would like to see and that are not there? Like, for example, what Norway is pointing out, we need to perhaps elaborate more about the general trust in government as one of the components that are important there. I do have Ms. Simard, Michelle from Canada. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, New Zealand, and thank you for the information from the deck. I don't want to repeat the same thing, but definitely the social acceptability of using register is a key point. The engagement with the user as well, not only the public, but the users need to be addressed somehow. I haven't seen, in Canada, we have a under coverage and over coverage study after the traditional enumeration. And if we're going into an admin data, we need also to do research on the coverage measure. So maybe a little section on that. When we're combining both, the response rate reporting, do we include admin data as response or just the collection response rate? So little piece, maybe an area where we could develop more. What in Canada, it's at least 10 years of research that we have completing, and we're still not there. So a lot of research has to be made before transitioning. And my last point would be the impact on the other programs and on the overall national organization. The census for us is a start of a lot of other programs, like the demographic estimate programs use the census as a benchmark and then do projection using admin data. So we need to consider that as well. Our frame use the census, our survey, social survey use the census as a frame. So they have impact, secondary effect that you need to consider in the national organization, national statistic organization. So that one would be the missing part in the overall general handbook, but it's a pretty good start.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle. Yes, very well. The point well taken. What is the impact on the overall national statistical system when the transition is accomplished, and how does it impact all the other components? Yes, we will certainly take this under consideration. We are moving to Indonesia. Mr. Atsul Wajdi, please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Sujan. Thank you, NST, for organizing this event. Thank you, New Zealand, for giving us some insight. In Indonesia, we also have some issues using administrative data. I would like to raise data privacy issues that we are now facing in Indonesia, because we use some admin data as the basis for our population census. However, when we give back the result of the census, there are some, let's say, quote unquote, protests, because in some of experts' mind, NSO should not give individual data. On the other hand, because we use administrative data, there's an quote unquote obligation for us to give some updates on this individual data. Maybe I would like to raise also these data privacy issues in some more elaborated terms in discussing this handbook. Thank you very much, Sergeant.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Azul. Yes, point well taken. We do discuss the establishing of the statistical population registers and the interactions between the administrative registers and the statistical population registers. We do tackle data privacy to a certain extent, but we are certainly taking your comment really and noting it, and then we will elaborate on this point as appropriate. Patrick Gerland, Pop Division, please.
Thank you, Sergeant. It's just a small comment related to taking stock of the existing experience across the world and over the years in respect to this topic. I think it may be interesting to include maybe in appendix a small table or a list that basically give the broad picture of the different countries that have been using these methods, this type of systems to produce population statistics, including population registers. And my question for you is, since you have a survey that you have already conducted, and in addition, you have the metadata from the demographic yearbook annual questionnaires, is there a way to build on these materials to basically have a list of the countries that have been using register-based methods, and since when, which year they have this experience? Because right now the handbook has all kind of illustrations and cites some countries, but it's a little bit anecdotal. And I think there is some benefit to give the broader picture of basically the worldwide experience and since when. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Point well taken. We do have this information. It is just not put together in one place. We do have it on our new dashboard that has been put up during the summer. And in the dashboard, if one goes country by country, there is an information what kind of census the country intends to take in the 2020 round of censuses. But your point is well taken. We do have, as I said, this information. It is just not put together in one place. The only one that we would need to dig deeper is the exact moment of transition and when it happened. For some of the countries we do know, but then for the others we will have to do some additional research. But yes, thank you, and for the point, and we will put this together as an illustration. Any other points or comments or suggestions for the overall content of this handbook? Is there anything missing there, or is there anything there that shouldn't be there? In general, overall. Gloria, UNECA. Go ahead, Gloria.
Thank you, Sergeant. Just one comment in relation to the point raised by the colleague from New Zealand on how to transit. And I think the question that will come from a country, where do I begin? Like, after having all of this information of the critical ingredients, how do I begin this journey? And in that connection, I'm wondering whether we would consider having an annex of a roadmap of a journey that one could take. Like, should we begin from the legislation or an assessment of the registers? Just that kind of more hand-holding kind of guidance. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gloria. So yes, very well. We will take this into consideration to develop some kind of graphical roadmap of the components of the transition from the traditional to the register-based censuses. And then we will put this definitely as part of the handbook. I have Jorge Andres, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you because for your invitation to be part of this discussion. So my comment is very related to the Gloria's one, because I think that to define the transition from the traditional collection methodology in censuses to the integration with admin data, it must to be part of a strategical way to rethink the statistical production, right? So maybe we have to reinforce the role of the strategical planning of the NSO of how to define this transition from the traditional collection methodology. So in particular, because in some countries like Chile, it is very important to be part of the coordination across the national statistical system, right? In order to support this new thing to produce official statistics, in particular in the case of the census, right? Another statistic related to this kind of statistical operation, right? So my point is that the effort in order to rethink how to use the admin data to statistical purposes in censuses is more than just an operative goal. It must be related to a strategical planning of how to rethink the statistical production, specifically in the population one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, a very important point to put this transition in the context of the big picture and the overall strategy for the development of the government services and facilities at the national level. Thank you very much for this, and then certainly a very valid elaboration is needed there. I do not see any other general comments on the handbook. Of course, this is not the end of our discussion. I have Ian. Ian, go ahead.
Thanks, Sergeant. I just wanted to respond to a couple of comments that have been made about this, the modular approach from moving from one system to another. We did consider setting out a roadmap, as has been suggested by UNECA. The problem is no one country adopts the same process as another. There are national circumstances which mean that more or less every country's approach is going to be unique and different to the national circumstances. So we didn't do that. We've set out a number of preconditions and requirements that should be in place. And for example, the creation of a national reliable population register is one of them. Public acceptance is another. But the actual mechanics of doing it from one system to another, we have deliberately strayed away from. But I think that is the point of some of the case studies. I'm hoping that when we produce the case studies, there will be individual approaches about how one country has done it, which may act as a sort of guideline. But we did think about doing a roadmap, but there is no one roadmap that you can set out, and I think that's the problem. I must say I quite like the idea, I think New Zealand suggested it, of the best way of doing it is to conduct two censuses, of course. You do a traditional census and then you do your register-based census, and you see how much better one is than the other, and you can then adjust your registers or your administrative approaches to get the optimum data. But of course, that requires one census to be twice as expensive than any others, and I think most countries will balk at doing that. I think the UK actually attempted to do that, or it considered doing that for the last 2021 census. It was going to collect a lot of its census data additionally using registers, and just to see how the statistics compared. But in the end, the cost overruled that as a viable option, and I suspect that is likely to be the case everywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for pointing this one out. And then definitely we are looking again to the what also Malaysia outlined, the need for national examples there to learn from. So I will then just try to outline the major points that we are taking from the discussion here, and thank you very much to all that participated. We are of course taking a note of the fact that we need to work more on the national examples. We need to focus a bit on the design of actual transition, which is the same as the roadmap, and then that might be achieved by, again, having more of the national examples there. The public acceptance has been outlined there as in need of being further stressed throughout the handbook itself, together with the general trust in government as a major precondition to accepting the life, so to say, register-based everyday life. And then a very important point, regarding data privacy, which is there, but again, should to be elaborated a bit more, and the impact on the overall statistical system. What does it mean for the overall statistical system when we move from one well-established statistical exercise to completely another, and what impact would that have or might have on the subsequent statistical exercises at the national and subnational level. And finally, the point that is absolutely a very important one on the role of the strategical planning, the importance of ensuring that the transition from one way of census taking to another one is actually part of the overall strategical development at the government level. And of course, we will take stock of the countries and then provide some more details about the countries that are actually relying on register-based censuses, and since and the moment that the transition took place, so that we can actually again learn from each other. So I thank you all very much for this extremely comprehensive and important contributions. We are taking, as I've said, notes of this, and then this will be reflected in the final draft of the handbook. Now we will move to the very specific and detailed comments and suggestions on section by section and subsection by subsection, and if need be, para by para. But before doing that, perhaps we could use some break in order to refill our coffee mugs, or perhaps especially for our colleague from New Zealand, some wake-up coffee at this point of time. So let us then just step aside for 5 minutes, and then we will resume at 9:26 this time here. Or if you want, we can do it 9:30 just to be right on the mark. So 9:30 we will resume, and then we will start going para by para and section by section of the chapters of the handbook. Thank you, and see you then in 8 minutes or so. Dear colleagues, can we resume?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all. Let us then now move to the next stage of reviewing the handbook. As mentioned, the idea is to go section by section, and if the section has subsections, then we will go subsection by subsection. We did collected the general comments. We also have invited the lead discussants for each of the chapters. So we will start with the lead discussants, and then we will open the floor for discussion, and then we will then go through specific comments that we have received in writing, and then solicit other comments as well. We will start by the presentation on the chapter number 1 and the comments and the overview by two lead discussants. We have Chile and Kenya. So Chile, would you please take the floor first?
Yes, thank you, Sergeant. Okay, so talking about the presentation we are doing, first of all, let me say that as the countries now, we are facing the challenge of transitioning to a more intensive statistical approach of using this administrative register. This handbook represents an important guidance and tool to help NSOs and national statistical system in general to lay the foundation and the path to do so. And in the case of Chile, it is pretty important for us as for the last couple of years, we have been starting this line of work, and a lot of people of our professional teams and the institution in general are fully compromised with doing this and trying to do this transitioning of using more intensively statistical administrative data. Well, about the chapter number 1, this introduction chapter of the handbook basically highlights the context of a statistic worldwide, in which the growing demand for disaggregated, timely, and quality information has become evident, especially within the context of the pandemic. That we do know that in a lot of scenarios and in a lot of countries that this field work for collecting information has not been possible. So in addition to improving this timelines of data has the benefit of reducing costs of what is considered the most expensive statistical operation in most countries that we know it is the census. And of course, it also talks about the major modernization of how we do statistics and how it is produced. And I like to emphasize in this, as Jorge was mentioning before, that when we are talking about this strategic planning about how to do statistics and how to advise on all of these modern ways of how producing all of this, it is quite important to have this guidance, and also for taking all of another institution, another colleagues that part of the national statistical system to feel part of it. And within this framework, the different experiences and level of progress of countries that have already completed their transition for us are completely helpful. It is mentioned in the handbook that there will be study cases. So we also suggest that at the beginning of the introductory chapter, we could mention which countries we are going to see in the appendix. But this could also, if we have in mind all of that from the very beginning, it can draw a picture from the start. So also the chapter of introduction contextualizes the definition of administrative records, and it is quite important in order to know what we are talking about, especially for those who are new in this topic. And an important part in here is that as we highlight the importance of updating and having this systematic collection of data organized that needs to be need to have identifier in order to update, because it is basically essential. Maybe we could highlight on that from the very beginning to say that it is really important to have unique identifiers, and even more crucial to get access to those identifiers. Because in some countries, as a matter of fact, that's what we face now in Chile. It is like there are some restrictions or some difficulties to get access to those nominated data. I mean, to those unique identifiers of a system in general. And we need to build on that in order to say that yes, it is important to have them and it is important to access them. So legal framework in general should allow statistical offices to do so, of course taking into part the statistical secret and always regarding protecting the privacy as we were mentioning before. So that is considered in the next chapter, I think chapter 3 or 4, but it also could be mentioned in the introduction, and it should be like the whole picture of the document. So also the introduction of the handbook comments on the population and housing censuses as the primary sources for analyzing demographic, economic, and social statistics. And we think it is pretty interesting and useful the way how you address and comment a little bit on the three data collection methods for census that we have, like the traditional census, the register-based census, and also the combined approach. And it is very useful for the reader to transition in that scenario, to know what we are talking about when we try to use more administrative to include administrative records within the statistical production. Also, the concept of production census type results based on register that it is mentioned in the handbook that it was developed during the 200 censuses, being one of the main inputs for this, having a developed basic population register in which this field for different census attributes are populated from the subsalary register relating to the specific topics. We think it is also really interesting how we're talking about and how we paint this frame, basically, as we are trying to say that, of course, we part from a traditional census and we can move completely to a full use of administrative data, but also using a lot of more information and this kind of other registers that could help us to introduce a combined approach. And of course, and it is mentioned as well that this transition has challenges alongside. And it is very important to the way they acknowledge these challenges, that there are different scenarios where we can have all of them. As I was mentioning before, the legal framework is one of the challenges we need to work with. Basically, because this is really important for the countries. Well, and finally, the introduction draws a current profile of global censuses, as we were mentioning in the previous intervention, and being the traditional censuses based on full field enumeration and a still predominant methodology in conducting population and housing censuses. So we also think that having an appendix about the name of the countries that are using which one right now, or maybe which are the countries that will translate from using a classic approach right now and will be using another one in the next round of censuses in 2030. It could be really useful, as also for trying to maybe if any country can get in touch to the other NSO and maybe ask for some questions and some suggestions, that we think that this kind of work that peer-to-peer is really useful. So in general, we congratulate all the efforts that are being made for having this handbook. As I was telling you before, we are eager to, when we have the final version, to share it with our rest of the colleagues in the institution. And that's for our part. Maybe Jorge, I don't know if you want to add something.
Thank you, Jorge. No, very well. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I mean, thank you. Thank you, Chile. Let me just point out a few of the comments that should be taken into consideration. Some cross-referencing for unique identifiers, they are elaborated upon later on in the chapter 4, and privacy as well, but could be cross-referenced in this introductory chapter. And also the point of having in this introductory chapter perhaps one para or so regarding the cost the difference in costs of the traditional censuses versus the register-based censuses. So thank you very much, Chile, Eileen, and then we will move now to Kenya with the comments on chapter number 1. Scholastica, please.
Hello, good evening, good morning, everyone. My name is Scholastica Kingi Kongo. I work with the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. I'll just give a very brief overview of chapter 1 from what I read. And most of the comments have been made, so I will not take a lot of time repeating on the same. So on the overview of the chapter, it highlights the chapters in the document, so which gives at least someone who is in a hurry to read the document to really identify exactly which chapter they need to read or make reference to. And then the definition of key terms are well articulated, and then the rationale is very well elaborated. And then in the background information which is provided, that is in the traditional census, the rolling census, and the register-based censuses, and all the combined approach, I felt like we've given Denmark and France, and in the table after, there's at least, I think, either 4% of African countries have reported to have used the combined approach. Maybe we can have a case study for the African country which has used the combined approach. Then also it's a good thing that it has given the current profile of the global censuses, where it highlights which countries are in, or rather which regions have done which type of census. So in the challenges of the population register, I felt that maybe we could add the setting up as a challenge, the setting up of population registers to be functional at lower levels will be costly and requires a lot of time. I was a bit biased, inclined to developing countries, but because we know some of these systems are yet to be fully functional, even in the lower regions, then also harmonization of all this information collected from different sources will be a bit tedious and costly, because it will require a lot of technology input, human resource, a lot of money which is pumped into having this system up and running. Also, looking at the people will have a feel of the big brother is watching, having all this information in one database. So how are we going to control this, and what are the repercussions of this? Do we have strong data protection acts to prevent this leak? So these are some of the challenges that I felt should be highlighted in the population registers. So I had a brief parting shot, which majority of when the overview was being done has been covered. So I was not really convinced about exactly the accuracy, the timeliness, in that there's going to be a lot of delays, especially if maybe one moves from one region to the other just to update their information. And then the coverage, looking at areas which are nomadic in nature, how are we going to cover such kind of population? And when you talk of cheaper than the traditional censuses, is it really cheaper? I'm still yet to be convinced about the cost aspect of going the administrative way. So maybe more literature or more material can be done so that we see how it's going to align itself with the features of a census. Then something else is now, how do we get Africa, the Latin America, and the Caribbean? There's a table at the end of chapter 1, which shows that Caribbean is 100% still on the traditional census. The Africa is 97%. So how are we going to get this country to adopt the new system and the methodology? And how will this transition be? We need to consider also these developing countries. Maybe they're answered in some of the chapters, but I was just focusing on what I wanted to get. Then also, who will be in charge? I will give a case and example of Kenya. The NSOs and the local administrators, majority where the civil registration is, that's the births and deaths, is under the local authority. And how is the NSO going to get the mandate? This is the legal framework to have all this information, considering we are going to get information from the tax collector, information from the students, information from maybe banks, all these places. Will the NSO be strong enough to have this information in one place? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Scholastica, and thank you, Kenya, for your comments. And let me just outline a few of those that are pertinent in terms of further work on chapter number 1. Again, the case study of combined approach for censuses, this is something that we already mentioned should be there, not necessarily in chapter number 1, but certainly cross-reference with the appendix. We certainly are taking also a note of your comment regarding that setting the population register is a costly endeavor. We do have an elaboration on the rationale for using the existing population registers that were set up by countries for different purposes that are purely administrative or tax purposes. And then if they exist, then the essential approach would be to take advantage of the existing information and then to try to convert it into the statistical aggregates that are necessary for assessing the implementation of different policies. So I believe that the message from the overall handbook is not that we are putting the population registers for statistical purposes, but that we are trying to take advantage and exploit the existing registers for the purposes of generating census-like statistics. Data protection, definitely, this is also, as mentioned by Chile, should be mentioned in chapter number 1. And who is in charge? That definitely differs from country to country. In some countries, the population register are highly centralized. In other countries, they're highly decentralized. The different authorities provide different inputs to the existing population registers through the legal framework and the protocols that have that are clearly and unambiguously spelled out in the accompanying legislation. So yes, we might definitely put some notes regarding these concerns there. So thank you both to our lead discussants, Chile and Kenya. I am now opening the floor for any other general comment on chapter number 1. Is there anything there that you believe should not be there, or is there anything missing that should be mentioned, incorporated in this chapter number 1? So the floor is open on general comments here. Yes, Sylvain?
Hi. Yes, I have 2 general comments. One is about terminology in chapter 1. And when we go further in the document, it becomes clearer. But I was not sure exactly what we were talking about when referencing register and admin sources. And it's probably because of the Canadian context. We don't have like local registers that we can use for an eventual statistical population register. So I was a bit confused sometimes. So my suggestion would be to have soon in chapter 1 a visual of the system as a whole, even though we are talking about base registers later on in the document. I think it would put things into context a bit better if we would have like the base registers and as well the input to the base registers, which can be a local register or individual admin data source. So that would be my suggestion there. As well, we talk a lot about the advantages and disadvantages of the various models, and my suggestion would be to talk about drivers instead of advantages, to capture this idea that eventually maybe traditional collection is not sustainable long term. So I would probably frame that with drivers instead of advantages. There's mention about the diminution of the cost, the decrease in terms of burden to the population, the declining of response rates. But I would probably add to that maybe the use of admin data as a contingency plan. We were talking earlier about transitioning in a step-by-step approach to moving towards registers. I think COVID-19 or even the impact of climate change to traditional collection is a good as well driver to move towards a register-based census. And maybe the other driver that we try to put forward here in Canada is having the postal system as the cornerstone of traditional collection. Postal system is evolving, and the days, at least in Canada, of having daily mail activity is probably ending soon. And if this is at the center of your traditional collection, maybe it's not sustainable long term. So there you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvain. Yes, taking note. We do have a visual at page 81, which is in para 342, so we can perhaps then cross-reference and make it sure that it is spelled out at the very beginning, as you're mentioning, into chapter number 1, drivers versus advantages. Definitely, this is important in terms of terminology. Contingency planning, that is an interesting approach, and I believe that we are certainly going to take it on and then see how we can formulate it in that manner. Thank you very much, Canada. I have now Jorge Andres, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. My general comment is that as it was presented, one of the main problems in adopting or migrating to a census with administrative record is the presence of informality in some activities of market, right, or market, which doesn't allow to have a full coverage of the universe in certain population phenomena, right, such as labor market or the presence of irregular housing. My point is that in some countries, rather than thinking immediately about the transition to a completely register-based census, right, we should move towards first of all, to the integration of administrative records in census operation, right? So there is maybe we have to think or include that before thinking of a transition, we have to move to the integration, first of all, like a step 0, right? And then we have to move forward to the step 1 that it should be the transition at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is all about the different steps and this is also mentioned earlier in terms of the designing the transition, and then the first step would be integration of records. Thank you very much. Note taken. Michelle, please, Canada.
Yes, thank you. I was just having a thought when I was listening to the two colleagues there. And I'm not sure if it's part of this chapter or might be in chapter 2 when we talk about the IT infrastructure. But the fact that we're integrating multiple sources of data, that we might have personal information, unique identifier. I don't know if we should talk a bit more about the preparing against cyber attack, making sure that the IT infrastructure is agile, and also protecting against insider breach, internal breach. So making sure that the environment are compartmentalized and nobody can have access to everything. Anyway, I was just thinking about some aspect around that theme somewhere in the, I mean, I'm sure if it's chapter 1 or maybe in the IT infrastructure in chapter 2, but it's something important like the cyber attack right now. We all know how risky it could be.
Yes, thank you. Yep, we can bring it up front and to put this as one of the concerns that need to be taken when we consider the whole overall. So yes, IT point, bringing IT further to the beginning of the introduction. Thank you very much. Thank you. So these were the comments, general comments that were made for chapter number 1. I will now suggest that we go for very specific comments on this chapter number 1, and we can go section by section. I believe that this is this would be the most effective way of doing it. So I will start with section number 1, which is 1.1 background, including the rationale for moving to a register-based statistical system. Here we do have paras 1-1 until para 1-8. So we have here comments that we have received from Canada on para 1-2. The comment is on the legal framework there, and it says social acceptability is an important challenge, and the legal framework is not necessarily always the answer. So this is a comment on paragraph 2 of this part. And then paragraph 5, the comment is also from Canada on population registers. Statistical population registers or ad hoc population lists could also be used to cover areas where the quality of administrative data is deemed very good, while traditional collection could be used elsewhere. So these are 2 comments that I believe are really on the mark. And then I have another comment on this section from Chile, and it is on paragraph 1-2. It is on the quality of existing administrative registers, the last sentence there. And besides the quality, it could also mention as challenge that administrative records don't have a statistical purpose. And this has been already mentioned. So all of these comments are now noted. Are there any other comments on this section? So para 1-1 to para 1-8. Very well. Let's move to the section 1-2, which is the overview of the handbook and target audience. So this section goes from paragraph 1-9 to 1-19. So here I do not have any written comments from participants, so I am putting this section for review and comments and discussion. Any comments on this section, paragraphs 9 to 19? Yes, Gloria. And then Helge.
Sergeant,
Gloria.
yes, this is a question, but also touches on, it is on para 11, 111, those also touching on 1.4. Whether physical addresses necessarily fall into business establishment and enterprise under business establishments and enterprises, or under buildings and dwellings, or they could be considered as base it could be considered as a base register, the physical address register. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Note taken. Yes. Helge, please.
A brief comment on paragraph 110, which lists the conditions that should be met. This seems mostly to have good wishes, but I think it's more than good wishes and plans. It would help, say, to introduce a realistic, a long-term strategy, a realistic long-term strategy. And this applies to many of these issues, that there need to be some more realism in what they're doing. I heard a story about a country where the president had heard that it's cost much less to conduct a ready-based census than a traditional census. So he told the statistical office to do that. But they said, sir, we don't have any registers. It doesn't matter, do it anyway, was the response. Of course, there has to be some realism. How long does it, what kind of registers do they have? How long does it take to develop? Is it possible, etc.? Thank you.
Okay, point taken. So this is all about register existence and the time needed to be established. Very well, we'll put that there in paragraph 110. Any other comments on this section 1.2, paragraphs 9 to 19? No, very well. Then Helge, you have your hands up. I believe this is the old one, right? I would assume so. Let's move to the section 1.3, and here we have a definition, the definition of a register. Here I do have written comments that we have received from Canada and Chile. This is again the definition of the register, paras 20 to 29. We do have for paragraph 21 comments from Canada, and this refers to the first sentence. So it says such as persons and variables that are defined by administrative rules and demands in a country. So the comment here is not only a country, could be a company, an organization, or a municipal, provincial, regional government. So this, well, I am not completely sure that when we talk about the administrative registers, we do really talk about the companies or NSOs. So we will then consult with Canada on this comment further on. Another comment from Canada is on a second sentence. Although the content and process of register will differ, the types of the registers maintained are usually very similar. The comment here is, this raises a question. Are we referring to administrative registers only, as those registers maintained by an NSO or a central government agency? Or can administrative registers also refer to those administrative data sources that supply the register, such as files from a company and so on and so forth? I think this should be clarified either by extending the definition of an administrative register to more than just the country NSO, or by explaining earlier that the country NSO admin register is supplied by unit level data from multiple and diverse administrative sources. So this is a comment well placed. We will elaborate this earlier in this subsection. The third comment is on paragraph 22, and it is the comment at the beginning of the para. We say as a rule, and the comment is, do you want to use the word ideally to account for potential undercoverage of the target population in registers? So not ideally, essentially we believe that this is really, that should be a rule that is an information on complete group of units, but then we will revisit this comment with Canada again. And finally on para 25, this paragraph reuses the same term administrative registers as para 21, which refers only to a country. I think this section should more clearly distinguish administrative registers assembled by NSOs, administrative data source providers, such as institutions, and regional by such as institutions, organizations, companies, and regional governments, and administrative data, which are data holdings, those providers at which they can supply the NSO. So this is reinforcing the comment that we already have. And then from Chile, on the same section, para 24, the last sentence, the role of such unique identifiers, and the comment is, it could be here or in the previous para, the importance of the NSO to access those identification codes could be mentioned. And in some cases, there exist difficulties to share nominated data. And this is the comment that we have already heard from Chile. So this is, well, to the point. So these are the written comments that we had for this section. 1.3, para 20 to 29. Any other comments on this section? I see Patrick and then Ian.
Thank you. For this section, my comment is more about the paragraph 126. The way it's phrased right now, it's a very generic wording, I presume on purpose, but I wonder to what extent, especially in this small introduction here. You want to have something maybe a bit more linking to population register and the CRVS side of this, because it appears later in the chapter 3. So in chapter 3, it's elaborated. But here, compared to the rest of the other paragraphs, it stays in a very generic, very abstract way. And I think there may be the merit in terms at least of vocabulary and linking all the key elements, maybe to include in one sentence a bit more about the connection and linkage of all this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So either a cross-reference or an elaboration. Cross-reference would do also, I think, here, and make sure that we are linking the two. Ian, please.
Thanks. I just wanted to add a comment on the same point. I accept, even though we define all these terms in the glossary of definitions, when they're being used in the course of the text, it is sometimes confusing as to know what we mean. I've tried, when we've tried preparing this, when we've used the word register, it is generally meant to use an administrative register, i.e. the register owned by the particular company, department, authority, whatever it is. Where the register is created by the Statistics Office, we've tried to use the term a statistical register, which may be the same as the other register, but just converted. Now, I think the use of commercial registers or company registers is covered. So when we say registers in a country, we don't mean registers of the country. We don't mean registers that relate to the country. We just mean registers that are available in the country, which could include administrative registers, it could include national registers, local registers, or it could include, to some degree, commercial registers held by companies, although I think we do make the point elsewhere that there are difficulties using those because usually there's a cost involved in accessing commercially sensitive or commercially prepared registers. But I agree, if people are confused, then the text does need addressing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ian. Any other comments on 20 to 29? No. Very well. Let us move to 1.4, which is the definition and essential features of the census. So this runs from paragraph number 30 to paragraph number 44. I do have two comments from Canada, one on paragraph 31. And it refers to the smallest geographical level. And the comment using the wording from the 5 essential features of a census, a small geographic level would be more accurate than the smallest geo level. Okay, point well taken. And then the second comment from Canada is on paragraph 38.1, the collection of information through questionnaire-based field enumeration. The question is, does this also account for internet-based self-response? Yes, it does. And then the comment is, given the extensive use of electronic questionnaire census operations, should probably qualify the term questionnaire-based electronic questionnaires and or paper questionnaires. Very well. Points taken there, and then we will address them accordingly. Any other comments on paragraph 30 to 44? Ian, I see your hand, but I believe it's the old one. Thank you. Any other comments on this section? No, very well. We'll move now to the section 1.5, and the section is on data collection methodologies. So the section goes from 45 to 47, only 2 paragraphs here. And then I have a comment on paragraph 1. Let me just see. 140. Well, this one was already is from Canada. So it is on paragraph 46 here. and it is on the first point, the traditional census. And online media makes it sound like data is collected from social media or other online accounts. Perhaps online questionnaire would clarify. Thank you. Point well taken. Any other comments on 45 and 47? Let us move then to the subsection 1.5.1. And this goes for 21 paragraphs from para 48 to para 69. And here I have 7 comments from Canada. The first is on para 50 and refers to fertility. I would suggest to either remove the specific example on fertility or add 1 or 2 other topics like mobility, journey to work, labor market. Very well, point well taken. As various methods can be used for collecting the data, including a mailed back or dropped off questionnaire. Instead of questionnaire, a letter that includes a secure access code to be used. So yes, we have to add that one there. Para 53, comment is on the word forms. Could be letters with the appropriate information. So this is again the same point here. Another comment on this subsection is on para 56. Administrative complexity. Having the postal system as the cornerstone on census collection can also be problematic as its priorities are shifting away from transactional mail as this information is more and more available in life. So this is definitely a good footnote here. And then temporarily employed field staff, it says in good economic conditions, it is increasingly difficult to attract and retain temporarily field staff. Also a caution that should be introduced there. And then finally on the paragraph 59, the comment is on inner city dwellers. And it says, specify what you mean by inner city dwellers. In our experience, urban population are some of the easiest to measure using admin data and have good administrative addresses. Do you mean homeless? Yes, actually, this is something that we need to clarify here. Point well taken. So, any other comments on paras 48 to 69? I see none. So let us move to then subsection, which is 1.5.2. And here we are now actually addressing the points. Sorry, let me just. The points of the combined approach for the censuses. So this runs from the paragraphs 170 to 184. And here we have comments from Canada, Singapore, and Spain. So let me then address the comments from Canada. And this is on paragraph 173. And this is on student register. You could include other government services such as healthcare, driver's licenses, immigration. Very well. And then the comment on paragraph 77. And this is many personal characteristics such as sex, and the comment is should we use the concept of sex at birth versus gender. The latter is fluid and can change over time. Exactly, that is why we are using sex here and not gender, because the gender identity is something that is then acknowledged later in life, but we are talking here of the newborns, right? And the date of birth is a good example missing from the list. Very well, that is a very good point. And then on 78, why is this section under advantages? And above, it refers to the lower cost of register-based censuses. So Canada, can you please clarify this comment for us? On para 78.
Yeah, it was just that it looks like a disadvantages, but it is in an advantages section. It's just that.
Aha, so the location of the, okay. Okay, thank you very much. And then we do have a comment from Singapore. And the comment is on paragraph 80. And it is on the second sentence. It is on the disadvantages. And the comment reads, data sources capturing the data through their administrative systems may have different outcomes to meet, and these could evolve over time. When sources are identified, there is a need to communicate and engage the sources. So any changes to required items, for example, definition, coverage, frequency of updates for the purpose of statistical compilation, can be discussed in advance with the NSO to prevent any break in data series and unexplainable trends due to how data is captured. So point well on the mark. And the second point is, we have comments from Spain on paragraph 77. And this is on the first sentence. And this is a comment from Spain. In my opinion, it is a mistake to consider cost reduction as one of the drivers in our case. And I guess this is common to other register-based censuses. The main driver is that there are already many evidences based on admin data providing a statistical picture of the society, labor, education, health, and so on. And that data collected using traditional collection methods such as household surveys conflict with them because surveys provide less quality in general, as an increasing part of the society is hard to reach. It happens not only with surveys, but also with traditional censuses that fail to reach the whole society. The non-response is increasing. Our job as statisticians is to choose the best method for collecting information, not the least expensive. Moreover, countries moving to register-based census are not among those in the worst situation to afford a traditional census. Comment well on the mark, definitely. And then there is another one on para 82 that says a register-based census is not a suitable tool for meeting ad hoc needs. And the comment is there are other collection tools for meeting ad hoc needs such as surveys. So the first comment, I believe, is really a substantial one. And this is that the cost reduction is not really the major driver for moving to the register-based censuses, but that the availability of these registers and their exploitation is actually the main one. So I think that this is well on the mark, and then we will see how to best incorporate the this comment later on. Any other comments on this subsection? I have Helge and then Ian.
Thank you. A brief comment on terminology based on paragraph 177. It says a greater frequency of data is one advantage. I think it should be a greater frequency of statistical dissemination. I think throughout the report, sometimes it often mixes data, which I think should be understood as microdata or unit data, record unit data, whereas Census produces statistics, not data actually. And about 182, meeting new needs. Registers can also meet new needs. If society develops, then there may be registers that have variables that have not been utilized. So if you have a rich registers, that can be done. Thank you.
That was 82, right? Yes. Okay. Thank you. I have Ian. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Surgeon. I just wanted to just briefly respond to some of the comments made about the cost being a driver in 177. It's quite right. In some cases, as Spain has noted, the cost of actually setting up administrative registers and preparing them may not necessarily be less than doing it during a traditional data collection. However, I still maintain that cost is a driver. Cost reduction is a driver. Now, it may be that the statisticians accept that there are other more important drivers. Quality is a much better driver than cost. But I'm afraid it's the case that politicians who pay the money to pay for the census are not really interested in quality at all. They're just interested in costs. And I know most governments like to see their census to be a lot cheaper each year. So I think cost is a big driver amongst the people that provide the money. So that's just one point. The other point that Canada made about in 178, and let me just remind myself what that paragraph is. Hang on. Oh, no, sorry. I think that was yes. Sorry, Canada's comment that the costs of administrative registers may be higher, and I think this should be made clear. Not the end cost. The ongoing costs of a register-based census are much cheaper. I mean, almost a tenth cheaper, even less than that. But it has to be accepted, and maybe the handbook should be stressed this more often, that the cost of establishing a register-based census, i.e. moving in the transition, sometimes can be quite significant. But when we say reduced costs, it means that once you've established a register-based system, such as the Nordic countries, the cost is a tenth or even less than that. I think Netherlands maintain that the cost is 1% of a cost of a traditional census. So I think once you've established the census, the costs are significantly reduced. But maybe we should make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, please.
Yeah, thank you. A small comment, but I think it's an important one. In 154, we do list the advantage of traditional census, and we mentioned the timing at a specific point in time. So we all know census is measuring the right person at the right place at the right time. I think we underplay the challenge of the time reference, the snapshot at a periodic moment in time. And maybe in 175, we should add not only having high quality data in the population register with comprehensive geographic coverage, but with also a timestamp. So having timestamp throughout the multiple source to make sure that if we want to measure where are the people in May 2021, we'll have that time variable somewhere in the register. So it's a challenging one if we don't have the time aspect in the register. Especially we have multiple source, different delays, different sign of life. So the timing variable should be more explicit in the condition for using registers.
Thank you. Thank you. Point taken on para 75. Any other comments on this subsection 70 to 84? Let us then move to there is Antonio. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Perhaps very quickly about the cost, because the cost is so important in the census, and about drivers and advantages. And well, we have been struggling during the last 10 years to convince the users that the cost was a consequence, nice, but only a consequence, because, and I agree with Ian that the government wants to spend less money, but the users want us to fight with the government to get more money for the census. So in my opinion, there might be different situations, but in our case, it's not only an advantage. Well, I would say there is an outcome, but no more than an outcome. And we have explained very many times to the users that we have never been thinking about the census because of the cost, but because of the quality. There are many ways of explaining that. Well, that's all. Thank you.
No, point well taken, Antonio. Definitely, it is not only the cost, definitely the only driver or the only motive for moving it. It is really a combination of factors there. So we will certainly make sure to provide different angles and not only emphasize the cost reduction, as important as it is, definitely, but certainly that the drivers, and especially from the point of view of the big picture, where we are talking about the holistic approach to the civil registration, to vital statistics, identity management, establishment of registers, and ultimately producing the statistical population register. So there are many motives, and cost reduction and the burden to the respondents may be the most prominent, but then of course certainly not the only ones. Petra, please go ahead.
Thanks, Surgeon. I wasn't sure whether this would belong here or in the next section with the combined approach, but I think that, and this came up with the presentation from Malaysia, and that's regarding the populations who are left out of the administrative data sources. Now, I know that you do allude to this throughout with regards to coverage, but they're quite different to those who might be who previously with the census, when you might be talking about like you talk about nomadic populations, homeless populations, and that's relevant. But with the administrative registers, it might be, as Malaysia said, stateless populations, whether by design or by accident, are excluded from administrative systems, even from birth or death registrations. They're not even in the civil registers, or migrants, or refugees, or whichever population, and because they are so vulnerable and of such interest and so relevant to development, it might be worth highlighting this specifically, that these are groups who may be left out, and there should be efforts made to ensure their inclusion. And it comes in the combined approach as well, but again, it's more alluded to rather than specifically highlighting these groups. Thanks.
Thank you, Petra. Point well taken. Yes, we noted it already, as you said, from Malaysia's overview of the chapter number 1, and we are missing this, so we will certainly address it. I can't tell you exactly where. I don't think it really fits into any of these specific modes of census taking, but it is actually a general issue that needs to be addressed from the very beginning. Thank you very much. Any other comments, Yusuf? Riani, please. Oman.
Yeah, thank you so much. I completely agree. That's one driver of the e-census or e-register. It's the cost. It's reduced the cost. In our experience, I can share that maybe we have a cutoff of the cost of traditional census and the e-census that around more than 70% reduce the cost. Also one point I can mention here, this point, that's also this kind of register system, it's helped to develop our stakeholder database. For that, we could develop the database and also clean all the register in our stakeholder. So I think this is the main advantage as well, and also the dynamic of the like this system for future. So I think also the timing of doing the register system maybe reduce maybe some time of the traditional census need long time to prepare, but by e-census maybe short time. So 3 things we can say here: the cost, the time, and also to develop and make a clean for our database or stakeholder in the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yusuf, points well taken. So cost, time, and the government data basis. Thank you. Any other comments on this subsection 1.5.2? Very well. Let us move to the combined censuses then. These are paras 85 to paragraph 108. And I do have Canada here, a comment on para 85. The first sentence, and then here the sentence reads, there are some standard data items that may have to be dropped from a wholly register-based census system. And a good example is the move towards gender versus sex at births in many administrative data sources. And this is right on the mark. And then the second comment is para 86. The combined methodology makes use of registers, and the comment is, or ad hoc population lists that are created specifically for a census, not evergreen. Okay. And then we have a comment on para 89, which is on first sentence. And this is a request for clarification. The option of register-based census with sample surveys or full field enumeration should only be adopted if all the necessary census information is available is not available. Yeah, this is okay, an obvious mistake. Thank you very much, Canada, for that. And then a comment on para 95, the last sentence. The virtual census make no additional respondent burden, thereby increasing its public acceptability. And the comment is there are competing pressures on public acceptability, so it is not taken for granted that lowering response burden will increase public acceptability. The privacy, inclusiveness, and public acceptability of reusing people's admin data may work in the opposite direction. Yes, very well. We will make sure that this is reflected. And we have a comment on paragraph 103, which is on first sentence, the advantages of combined census. You also have the flexibility of adapting the content included in the sample portion, yes. And then comment on paragraph 105. Response burden, other factors being equal, also falls somewhere between the minimum imposed in those censuses. And suggestions for rewording, so this is fine. And that would be the comments from Canada on this subsection. And we do have comments from Singapore on the same subsection. Let me just, and this is on paragraph 187. The comment is, the combined approach is akin to the register-based census serving as the short form providing universal information, with the sample survey serves as the long form. Very well, yes, thank you. So these were the written comments that we have received on this subsection. Now I am opening the floor for discussion. Let me see if I have another comment. Oh yes, I have another comment from Singapore on paragraph 97. And the comment reads, we may want to elaborate what is all necessary census information so as not to deter potential interest to pursue on the adoption of registers. Countries may start with a basic set of essential items and build on a fuller set progressively over time. Yes, this is again about the stages. Thank you very much. Any other comments on subsection 1.5.3 on the combined censuses? The floor is open. Ian, I assume this is an old hand there.
No, sir.
It's a new one.
I just wanted to respond to Canada's comment about paragraph 170. Was it 75? 195. Just to their comment about there are competing pressures on public acceptability. Just to remind everybody, this was a paragraph specifically relating to the Dutch virtual census. My understanding is that they're in and I'd be helpful for any confirmation of this from the Netherlands, that the Dutch virtual census, really there is no public concerns about it at all, and that's why I made that remark. So that paragraph is specifically referring to the Dutch virtual census. It's not a general point.
Very well, thank you. Thank you on this. Clarification, yes, very well. Any other comments on 85 to 108? I see none. Let's move to section 1.6, which is the current profile of the global censuses. So this is something that we have put together based on the documentation that we had available. I think it was in September or the beginning of October when we were working on this draft. This is the information that we had. I have here comments from Canada, and the comment is on paragraph 115, the last sentence. Is there insistence on 100% accuracy when we know it is not achievable? That is a good point. We could frame this by a discussion on reviewing the trade-offs between the various data quality dimensions when integrating administrative data. We may be ready to trade some accuracy for timeliness. Indeed. And then on 121, the coronavirus pandemic, climate change is currently having an impact on census collection. Yes, so we will definitely add this point there as well. And I have a comment on this section from Singapore as well. Let me just get to it. And the comment is on para 97. On 110, the whole para. And the comment reads, it may be useful to inform of the findings for actual count of countries 2020 round of census that were derailed, and together with 1.115, see if COVID had hastened the pace of change due to difficulty in carrying out traditional enumeration during COVID-19. So in the phases of finalizing this handbook, we will have more information about the impact of COVID-19 on censuses, and especially the whether it was a catalyst for moving towards the transition to the register-based censuses much faster than expected, and then we will reflect those findings in the final version of the chapter. What we have documented so far is that, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we do have a humongous impact of COVID-19 in terms of delaying the traditional censuses and on putting the discussion on the alternative to the traditional census on the table in many, many countries. Any other comments on section 1.6, which is the status of censuses at this point of time? Well, not really at this point of time, but at the point of time when we finalize the handbook, which would be in the next 2 to 3 months. So the floor is open. I see none. So thank you very much. I can conclude that we have reviewed chapter number 1. We have collected all of the comments and suggestions, both in written and orally, and I appreciate very much all the comments that will be reflected. We do have the specific comments on the wording of a certain paragraphs, and then we have a general comments regarding this introductory paragraph that will then help us in working on the final revision of it. Some of the points here is again the moving some of the definitions up front, making sure that we are clear in cross-referencing them, and making sure that we do have a distinct understanding that of the differences between the administrative registers and the statistical registers, especially the population statistical register, and that we reflect this from the very beginning so that the reader can identify those categories more easily. So with this, we have concluded chapter number 1. We have around 20 minutes, so I believe this is sufficient time for initiating the discussion on chapter number 2. And for this, again, we are going to apply the same approach. We will have the presentation by the lead discussants first. Then we will open the floor for general comments, and after that we will go again section by section and subsection by subsection. Chapter 2 is a pretty considerable one, so we can start today and then continue with it tomorrow. So in that in that spirit, I would then invite Singapore to take the floor and present the general comments on on chapter, sorry, number 2. Singapore, please go ahead.
Hi, I believe the chapter that we're looking at is actually chapter 3 on the types of administrative.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. I apologize. The lead discussants for chapter number 2 are Canada and Spain. Apologies, Singapore. Apologies, Turkey. Canada, would you please take the floor? General comments on chapter number 2.
Yeah, perfect. So I don't have slides, but I do have a little summary followed up by some general comments. So in general terms, the chapter covers the various prerequisites that must be met before implementing a register-based approach, either fully register-based or combined. I would segment these prerequisites into 4 categories. The first one is the strategic vision. So the importance for an NSO to have a vision for the future of census taking in their countries, based on a system of interrelated statistical register with a single unique identifier. The second category would be political support and legal framework. The third category would be some sort of operational consideration. So the capacity to access administrative data, understand its quality, its limits, the ability to manage the data, including ensuring the privacy of the data. And the fourth big category would be engagement. So the engagement to gain and maintain social acceptability of the general public and various stakeholders. The chapter also lists the advantages and disadvantages of the approaches and their ability to ensure compliance with the essential feature of the census. So this is the very short summary of a very big chapter, but I think it touches on all the important aspects. I would suggest, and we already talked a lot about this, but I would suggest to strengthen the social acceptability by either the addition of guidelines or examples from various NSOs on how they achieved social acceptability. Certainly, in Canada, the privacy landscape has changed enormously in the last 5 years. That actually led us to stop the creation of a statistical population register. So I think that to strengthen the section, I would focus on the end goal of gaining and maintaining the trust, and by that I mean demonstrating the intent and the competency, and this is how we gain in the end the trust. For the intent, I think we need to focus on the public good of what we are doing. In Canada, we have developed a necessity and proportionality framework. So to demonstrate that we make good use of admin data, we've also put in place some various ethics boards. As Michel mentioned earlier, it is even more important as we move towards using the cloud in general and in light of the various cyber attack. I also think that we should probably, when we talk about social acceptability, we should engage specifically privacy professionals, because they are the ones that are orienting or influencing public opinion. My last point, I just wanted to highlight that I was happy to read that about internal resistance within the NSO as moving towards a register-based or a combined census and it's certainly something that we have experienced in Canada. So I was happy that it was highlighted here in the chapter. So there you go.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sylvain. Spain, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to give a first impression on and to open the discussion on the second chapter of the draft manual, the one about transition that we have lived very recently. I have to say, first of all, that I was impressed about the content of the document. So congratulations on the job done so far, because it's really impressive. Perhaps I have been invited because we have among the countries that have joined the group recently of the register-based censuses. So let me say just a few words about what the experience we just had, or we are living now. Because I think it helps to open the discussion. We are in the last stage of a long process. I can say that it's. I'm not talking about the future, but about the present, because our census will be published in less than 1 year from now, and 95% of the job is already done. We have been carrying out experimental tests, not published, what we call the annual pre-census files since 2016. So we have experience. But it started like 30 years ago. So though we didn't know at this time that we were starting a register-based census, we decided to base the census in admit data in 2008, but as a wish and as a real project in 2014. So it takes 30, 12, 7 years, but anyway, many years. And this is part of the message, and this is in the manual, and this is very clearly written in the manual. When I think about the many things that we have experienced in the last years, almost everything is in the manual. So I find the chapter very complete, very comprehensive, and particularly as regards this chapter 2, how to move to the census. And I like very much talking first of all about preconditions, because the move from the classical to the register-based census is, of course, a qualitative leap forward. Just think of the resources in Spain. In 2001, in 2001, it was 50,000 people. In 2011, it was 5,000 people, and now we are about 15 people working on the census. So it's an enormous step forward, but this is not a problem of, not a problem of intelligence or the problem of courage, though you need courage to do that. You need determination, but above all, the first thing you need is preconditions that need to be met in the country, and they are very clearly written in the manual. So I like the way things are explained in the manual. Many times, minor remarks. Many times when we have to explain our transition, we talk about three legs that you have to build the census on. You need to have, first of all, the skeleton. I mean, you need to have the population register, or the dwellings and the dwellings register. You need to have a specialized admin data, administrative register, and you also need to have legal framework. These are the three legs. So when I see the preconditions in the section, if I had to write this section, this chapter, perhaps I would have focused on less preconditions, and other things are not exactly preconditions in my opinion, but it's a minor. I mean, for example, long-term vision, political support, public approval is so important to get the approval. But this is not a preconditions. This is part of the way forward. This is part of the things you have to do, of the challenges. So also, perhaps I would not separate into general preconditions and specific preconditions, because I think you can explain all together into one section of preconditions, but it's okay. I mean, it's a minor comment. It's okay. If I had to write, I would have written differently, but it's fine the way it's written. And one last comment that came several times before is about boxes containing case studies. Particularly in this chapter, I would find very helpful to have boxes with case studies, and we will be happy to write some in detail about our transition if needed. Again, congratulations on the job done so far.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Antonio, and thank you both you and Sylvain. Let me just outline few of the major points that we have heard from the our lead discussants. Strengthen the social acceptability, emphasis on trust, emphasis on public good needs to be a bit reinforced in this chapter. Also, some of the preconditions are not really preconditions, but are the parts of and the components of the way forward and on the overall progress that the government would be making, and this is a shift towards the contemporary approach to the government and rendering the services to the population. And then, of course, boxes, and thank you very much, Antonio. We will take you up on your word, and we will kindly request you to provide the box illustrating the process in Spain. So this is what we have so far. I am now inviting the comments, general comments on paragraph number 2. Ms. Yazdani, please go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much, Sejan. Actually, as Helge suggested, that we need to add the availability of administrative data as a precondition in paragraph 110. So I would like to suggest that we consider it here as well. Thank you.
The existence of admin data, right?
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Eileen, yes, go ahead. Chile.
Thank you, Sergeant. I wanted to build on what our colleague from Spain was telling us about, that we also think that it is pretty necessary and such a precondition we could say the strategic planning that Sergio was mentioning before as a plan for the whole national statistical system, moving towards this advancement in the using of administrative register is necessary. And also from that view, it also needs a legal framework and political endorsement. And that's what we think it's pretty connected with the confidence of the public, but also from the institutions. This kind of integration and use from other administrative registers need for the institutions that collect the registers and work on them, trust on the NSO, for example. And also, and we think it is pretty important, could be integrated in the document in some part. It could be about the time that it can take moving from the step 0, that having the preconditions and the process of integration of data, collecting, arrangement, and all of that, to having a completely and full census based on administrative records. Because it can take, I don't know, from 10 years maybe to 50 years. And we think it is important to acknowledge that kind of process, it can be different for each country and for each region, and depending, of course, on the previous condition of the system when they start this process. So, as it is mentioned in the introductory chapter, that it has different challenges, maybe putting it more explicit in some part of the documentation can also set up expectations, because we don't want, for example, some political people to read the document and say, okay, it can be done in 5 years, so you can do that. And of course, it is not going to be achievable in some cases. Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you very much, Eileen. Yes, good point. Definitely, we need to emphasize that this is really a cumbersome and time-demanding approach. We have heard Norway; it took them 40 years. Today the contemporary technologies may make it faster, but still, this is really a huge shift. Federico Segui, Uruguay, please go ahead.
Thank you. I think it would be important to add something about the new role of the NSOs as data steward in the framework of the National Statistical System, and in particular in the construction of an integrated system of statistical registers to be used in the census. taking into account how to build long-term and mutually beneficial relationships with data providers, thinking in incentives for data providers to share information, but also to improve data quality and so on. This subsection 2.5 cooperation between NSO and register holders mentions something about it, but I think we could emphasize more the concept of data steward. As you may know, that is not only cooperation, data sharing, it is data governance, data protection, confidentiality, data quality, metadata management, etc.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Point well on the mark. Definitely, yes. We will emphasize that data stewardship as a part of this process. It is indeed a very important one, and it extends beyond the use of registers for the censuses. It really tackles the overall statistical system of the country and the way that we need to organize this work in report to the data providers that are much more the numerous than they ever were until today. So yes, data stewardship, extremely important point. Thank you very much for this. I have the floor still open for any general comments on chapter number 2. We have heard the lead discussions and we have heard from ESCAP, Chile, and Uruguay. Any other comments at this point of time? Again, please let me re-emphasize the fact that we will take your comments whenever you make them. So this is not to say that if we are concluding the discussion on, let's say, general comments on chapter number 2, that there will be no possibility of making those comments later on. Of course, there will be possibility whenever you feel like you run into something that you believe is really critical, then please let us know, and then we will go back and do it accordingly. Jorge, please go ahead.
Thank you again. Maybe I would like to share a general comment related to how we need to have some special skills in order to highlight the capacity inside the NSO. Because for example, in Latin America, most of the countries must to go forward to rethink how to carry on the census, right? In order to integrate or transition to the methodology mixed with administrative data. But maybe it would be very advisable to consider in the document that it's not enough to have just hard skills. I'm talking about the technical and methodological one. Maybe it is very important to consider the soft skills in order to move forward, in order to push on forward, right? The change of mentality of how to promote the necessity across the national statistical system in order to go forward to our censuses with a mixed methodological way to think using data for statistical purposes, right? So in order to describe the infrastructure inside the NSO and the national statistical system, maybe it is very important to consider the soft skill in order to link the NSO across the national statistical system and the data providers too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, very important point. The capacity within the NSO is one of the critical components of the considerations for the transition itself. So thank you very much, Jorge, for this. And we are right on the mark. We have collected the general comments on chapter number 2, and tomorrow. Depends morning for some and then evening for some others. We will start going through the specific sections and subsections of this quite long chapter. So with this, I really would like to conclude today's sessions. to express again many thanks from our side for your comments and suggestions. I believe that this is indeed a work that will enhance significantly the draft that we have in front of us, and will provide us with a comprehensive review of the handbook itself, and also in terms of the detailed comments and suggestions, which is also quite important. So thank you all for today's contribution. We are looking forward to continuing tomorrow, and thank you again very much. Until tomorrow, have a good rest and the rest of the day, depending, or the night, depending where you are at this point of time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
so much.
everyone.